just in case.
I thought Dana brought that last time. I thought I could learn it.
Vicky?
But the last workshop, I thought Dana brought that.
Oh, no. Yep.
Hey, Keith.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, how are you doing? Not quite the spread in there. Did you get some?
Just a little nibble.
We got you some food this time. It's more like a group thing.
More than I can say for the last. All right.
Convention, this is the time of year you run all over the place, budget hearings.
Next month is brutal. And then, you know, pile onto that the legislative committee meeting in Orlando. But at least Treasure Coast rescheduled their meeting because it was the same day.
Oh, because you're over there for them.
So I was either gonna have Mitty cover Treasure Coast so I could go to Orlando, but Treasure Coast rescheduled to the 23rd.
Both. I think the Lord wants you.
Yeah.
No response, but our HOA president got 2 quotes to do our preserve, 12,000, 17,700.
It's crazy.
We would have known if we had preserve. The
Right.
signs say do not go in, the signs in the preserve say do not enter.
Ours don't say do not enter, they just say, I don't know, ours just kind of say preserve area. I forget exactly what they say, but basically they say be nice to it, take good care of it, don't trash it.
Conference room.
Yeah.
I dressed down. All right, you gave me the bad chair, didn't you?
I did not. Lori has already started the video, so there is proof that I have not stopped.
And I just walked in with you, so. I gave you the bad chair. Sit back down.
I need to put a note on that. I want to Jeremy replace having the budget somewhere.
Let me see if I can fix it. It starts out okay, usually what happens is it sinks.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started since it's 5 o'clock. This is our August 29th, 2022 budget workshop. Lori, can I get roll call?
Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stone,
Here.
Councilmember Deambra.
Here.
Councilmember Brandon,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So I'll give the floor to Jeremy or Jeff.
Well, I'll start it off by saying this, this budget serves as a management guide, plan document, and just a financial roadmap throughout the year. Village staff, which, most of them are here tonight, has done an amazing job of trying to, I don't know if this is a celebration tonight or to kick off the next year, but, we go 12 months throughout the year just managing the process and making sure we stay on track. And then we have 6 months where we're gearing up for this process. So we're coming to an end, but we're starting the process all over again. But they do an amazing job, work very hard, very dedicated to the village. And so it's, this budget represents our recommendations, the commitment and effective management of the village's many resources while advancing the village's council's priorities, strategic plan, and vision. Just a couple of the key dates. The strategic initiative started in February. The budget process begins in March. Budget workshop was on June 27th, July 21st, and then, of course, today. We do have a budget hearing September 8th and the final budget hearing September 15th. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Snyder, who will guide you through this presentation.
Good evening, Council. It's real happy to be here. Mayor, Vice Mayor. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly for you. The millage rate history, we're recommending to stay the same, and that'd be the last 3 years. We have no planned increase. Overall increase in the taxable value was 15.48. And that, a significant portion of that is due to new sales, because homesteaded property is limited to a 3% increase, and that's just roughly 90% of the village have homestead protection. Non-homesteaded property is limited to 10% increase, and commercial property is limited to 10%. So you can see they get to 15. Some of the properties are sold or construction, new construction. Oh, wrong way. I knew it. The difference between our last workshop and now is we added $85,000 for the business liaison. We didn't have that in there, so we put it in there. We increased transfers to capital improvement of $124,000 and change. Half of that was from the Palm Beach County Fire Service contract, and that we heard you, and we're trying to commit revenues for new fire vehicles, and so this is going to work out, I think, very well for us. We allocated $46,000 for fire medical contingencies, and that's due to the new regulations and laws that we got from the state. So we want to make sure that we can cover the costs of those. We have supervisor of election giving us some extra costs, so we included that. And the community center air conditioning maintenance contract, we forgot that one, so we got it in there now. Final bid for the insurance resulted in a reduction of $102,000, so that was good news. And then there's increase in the capital improvement fund revenues. So you see the $124,000 that we transferred out of the general fund now becomes revenues into the capital improvement fund, and we will hold that until we have fire trucks or rescues to pay for, so that we can pay cash, and that's a very good move, I believe. And then there's a decrease in expenditures from the building fund and for utilities, and those are negatives. When you add all that up, it becomes $161,000 and change, and that's the change between the 2 years that you see in the total budget. Here's the change from the FY 21-22. That is the adopted budget at the time. I want to remind you that we have the amended budget, which brought our amount up to $36 million and change. So there's two ways of looking at it. I gave you the adopted budget. I didn't want to confuse things by adding the amended budget in there, but if we were to add the amended budget in, then it changed roughly $1 million and change, and a 3.6% increase with the amended for FY 22, or the 6.8 from adopted to proposed. And most of that is really capital, the increase, and then transferring money for that, ARPA and that sort of thing. Here's our proposed expenditures. It's good to point out that usually between 60 and 80% of your expenditures in the general fund are spent on employees. So we're within that range. And then the revenues, property tax makes up a big portion of it, and they're running down the lines are the others. Indirect costs are the intra kind of governmental. So it's the cost of having a city manager, having a council, having accountants that aren't part of your fund, and those costs are shared this way. General fund balance projections. The fun thing about fund balance projections is I feel real comfortable with revenues when I start looking at them and projecting them. What I don't know is how we spend money. So my projections will change as we get farther down the trail, because I'll see, oh, we spent a little more money, or they're guessing they'll be spending a little more money. So they don't really stay the same, but they're pretty fluid for me. But our revenues generally do. So we're looking at estimated revenue balance of about $3.4 million end of this year without the ARPA. Here's what we plan to use the American Rescue Act funds for. So you see that we have $2,250,000 and change, and that's outlined as we talked about. So that's where we're headed. Building fund is $845,560. Permit fees are $604. Interest earnings are $3,000. And proposed usage of fund balance reserves are $238,000. Operating expenditure are $287, and personnel services are $588. Please stop me if you have any questions. Building fund reserves, we're still estimating there'll be about $483,000 left at the end of 22-23 fiscal year. Here's the capital improvement funds. You'll see that we have $1.2 million in budget for the capital improvement fund. The capital projects fund is where we parked the $124,000 that we transferred from the Palm Beach County Fire Services contract, so that's why that went up. And then our law enforcement trust fund, the officers would like to spend this much money, and the chief has agreed. Our capital projects fund, our capital improvement plan is very robust. You see that it's quite a lot of money within the next 5 years. It's 31 million and change. Is huge, a lot to do. 72% of that is in our water fund, but you see that all other funds, we have something going on. And then laying it out in list format. It's very hard to see, but it's right here. 5-year capital improvement plan for our roadways. We're looking at $770,000. Phone system replacement. Mr. Brad is going to be replacing our phone system. Tree canopy enhancement, $75,000 for the 5-year sidewalk capital plan. And those are a lot of the things that we have here. And beautification project of $37,000, and sidewalk plans in our capital projects funds there. This is utilities, water utilities. And so Marjorie will have her hands full with this. It'll be exciting for her. A nice way to join the village. And then some of the projects for stormwater. You see the El Portal project. Now the El Portal project was budgeted before Mr. Hammond left. So that was the number he put in there, and I believe he planned to cover any differences with money, the reserves, which aren't a lot, but that was his plan. And so there's your projects there. Surtax and utility fund, which is the capital improvement fund. And there's a capital projects fund. We look good there. You see the repairs and maintenance to the road, pathway and sidewalk improvements, cardiac monitors, phone system. Capital projects fund, that's the fund where we're putting the fire reserve, and beautification projects, and there's a couple of sidewalks projects there. Those were the transfers from the general fund.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Will the fire reserve have a separate account?
It will have a restriction. If you pass this budget, then we'll call it committed to fire or public protection, however we work that out. But we'll have a restriction, kind of committed. And then the water utility, 17.9 million. Recycling and refuse, 601,602, and stormwater, $916,000. Water fund, there is a planned spin down of the reserves, which is normal for something like what's going to happen. It's not huge this time, but we got a lot of money coming in, so there you go. All those projects that we talked about. Refuse and recycling, this is the one that Waste Management came to us and said they needed it, and you agreed, so thank you. That'll make it easier on everyone, I think. So we'll have a little reserves there. And then stormwater. So we're looking about $10,950 or $955. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any council comments?
Not really.
No.
I mean, we've gone through this, what, 3 or 4 times now?
So if we don't have questions on that, maybe I can lead you to some more questions. We can tackle, back by popular demand, last year we tied it to the strategic plan, some of the budget items. I can go through that, you have in your packet, I'll go through it fairly quickly, and maybe that'll lead to some more questions, and we'll conclude that way, if that's all right with you, if you want to do that.
Yeah, well, I know you put together the slide with some other considerations to think about. Do you have that?
Do you want to do that now?
Whatever you think is best.
Let me go through the strategic plan part of it first, and then we can do that.
Okay.
So, just going through our initiatives that council came up with back in February, so just the prioritizing grant funding, we do have some money to go after some grants, this year, so that is budgeted, $41,000 this year. We do have some loss mitigation, funds to track some of that. I know Doug's already been working on that, and so we're kind of a step ahead. The unassigned fund balance, as you guys know, we're at our 2 months now, big celebration for us. But you know, it doesn't stop there. We're really trying to get to 3 months. So on this slide shows that 3-month operating is roughly $3.95 million. So concluding, or we're projecting at the end of 2023 to be $680,000 short with the money that we're transferring over. So we still have some work to do, but I think everybody, even including council's on board, we're really trying to meet that 3-month operating and try to move that to 25%. Increased communication transparency. There's no budget, no resources needed for budget. I know that we continue to look for other ways. I know the mayor just started kind of a mayor's recap just to really try to put out another avenue for people when they see videos or something. Maybe it attracts their attention. We obviously want to get as many people included in the in our process as possible. So we'll continue to do that. The charter, update the village charter, as you guys know, that's ready for, or it's going to be going to, for the ballot. So there's no additional resources needed. Hopefully most of our legal expenses and planning expenses are done in that side of it. As you guys know, our annual street program, we are budgeting $773,000 this year. I think we've made big strides in the last couple of years to really get us to where we're actually doing some projects and moving. There is $100,000 of that 773 is for the future design of the next project that we're going to be doing. You guys have seen this map before, so everything in purple we've either done or we're planning to do. So that everything on the, we'll say, east side in purple we've already done. The portion that we're planning on doing this year is the south portion from El Portal south. And then we'll be doing, for the $100,000, we'll be doing the analysis for the green and the other portion of the purple. And then in future 5-year plan, we're actually trying to budget $710,000. If you remember, I think we were at $255 a year ago. We know that wasn't enough, but we feel like we're really making strides to get us there. And our plan is to put $710,000 a year, and we feel like that'll make a significant difference. The sidewalk projects, we have $245,000 budgeted this year, which is really three full projects that we plan on doing, and they're listed at the bottom. $75,000 from Seabrook, from Dover Ditch to Russell, $85,000 to Questa Drive from Riverside to Seabrook, and $85,000 on Questa Drive from Venus to US 1. So we have those 3 projects planned this year. You've seen this map before, but basically kind of has our plan. Next year, if we're successful getting through these 3 projects, sidewalk projects, next year we'll have probably our only new sidewalk we've had in a long time, is we plan on doing the Dover Road projects from the rec center out to Questa Drive. So that'll be a new sidewalk project, and I don't think we've had a lot of new sidewalk projects done in the village in a long time. So we're continuing down that path. I feel like we're doing really well with some of the infrastructure on roads and sidewalks, and Doug's done an amazing job of really trying to help plan that moving forward. We have this in our strategic plan. There's no funding for it currently, but I'll seek alternative transportation options for the village. We'll continue to look for grants and other opportunities. long-term building maintenance, this was something that we can probably start to transition off. We feel like we have a good building maintenance kind of moving forward, that we can tackle the big projects but still have maintenance of our building. This last year, we did put together that in an official document. If you need me to resend that, I can, but we're basically trying to really just steady the flow in that building maintenance fund so we can tackle the projects and keep our buildings looking good. Advocate, seek solutions for undergrounding. We'll hear a presentation tonight, we'll have discussion about it tonight. There is currently no money in the budget for undergrounding. We do have a proposal from Kinley Horn of $49,000, but is not currently budgeted. So we'll continue to have discussions at the council level, and staff will take direction from council on that one. Execute annexation plans based on annexation strategy. We don't have any new money put in the budget. You know, as most of you guys know, we do have a public affairs consultant that helps us advocate at the state level. I know I'm on that committee this year, and so hopefully we can make some strides at the state level. And so there's no funds allocated in the budget for that, but we'll continue to try to make some strides with that. Mitigate the impact of COVID on. And of course, we're kind of through that, but the next leaning forward is the US 1 bridge, and make sure that we can mitigate the impacts on businesses. I know Tessa and our business liaison has done a really good job of reaching out and just increasing line of communication. These are just some of the things that, and I know Ms. Young wanted to talk about, Mayor Young wanted to talk about this, and so I've kind of put it up for discussion as well. Just some of the things that we've done. In the last, over the last year, I've highlighted, the tenants in the business forum. It hasn't been good. I think we end up canceling the last one, but doesn't mean that we're not communicating. I mean, we do have an open line of communication. We occasionally get some emails, some suggestions. Anytime we get new businesses, she calls them and introduces herself and becomes that resource for them. So you have a list of some of those things that she's doing. And just some of the things that are upcoming with the business flare. You guys should, that's the traffic impact that we have on the village. That'll be coming to you guys this October 3rd workshop. I believe that was the date. You guys should be able to see some of that. She's been a part of those conversations with the vendor for that. She has some ideas for Think Tequesta that's coming up in this year, so it'll be a little bit of a spin off of Shop VOT, but a little different spin on it. She is, seeking some sponsorship opportunities for the Tequesta Fest. Big thing is she's just our point of contact for our businesses, so that they get that feeling that we have somebody that's trying to assist them. Oversight into development of the rec center, as you guys know, that's up and going. I think overall it's positive. I mean, every once in a while, I think we've had a couple of concerns about non-residents, those things. We will be bringing you guys some policies in the next month or two, like as we've talked about, letting it be open for a while, get kind of a rhythm going, and then we'll bring you guys those policies, procedures for the rec center and just the rec department, just for us to have a conversation, discussion. In this budget year, you will see, we do have additional costs now that we brought the rec center online, now that we're a full year of operations, not just the 7 months that we were last year, and of course our debt service for the rec center. Long-term strategy of Parks and Rec, we'll have a meaningful conversation, I believe, tonight, and we're working toward the Remembrance Park plans, and so that'll really help us get a real good picture of what our capital needs are for not only that park, but we have a pretty good feel for Tequesta Park. We don't have anything budgeted in this year for that currently, but as soon as we get those plans, we'll start to develop a CIP program for those. Identify, prepare strategy for Magic of Tequesta. To me, this goes into that small town feel, the gateways. We do have $37,000 that we could, look at the Cypress property, look at Old Dixie, really lay out some plans and even start maybe some drawings and some renderings for that. We do have some, I guess, preliminary draft through the Treasure Coast planning. They put together some little renderings for Old Dixie. I think that'll be used kind of as a guide. Obviously, we'll have to get more detailed We did have a preliminary conversation with the county. We know, and even FEC, so if we want to do some of those plans along that corridor, we kind of have a plan forward. I know Doug's already leaning forward on some of that if council continues with that direction. Establish safe and quiet zone railroad crossings. I recently sent you guys an email, it was today from last week, but I know Doug's had a conversation about the quiet zones. And I know Martin County is actually going to sit on those quiet zones for a period of a year. At least that's what they've been directed at this point from staff. And it gives everybody an opportunity to hear the horn blow and know that the train is coming instead of establishing that quiet zone. There's been 63 fatalities since Brightline started their project, and so jumping right into a quiet zone from day one may not be the best answer. So typically this process for a quiet zone takes a couple months, and so we're proposing let it open up, then we'll start that process, and should give everybody a couple months to get used to the speed of that railroad, because it's going to be much different than the current railroad. I also know that, and they've already said it, now we'll see what that flow is when we do get a quiet zone, but just because there's a quiet zone doesn't mean that they won't blow their horn. I mean, they have the opportunity, the conductors do it anytime for any reason, even if every single time they wanted to come through they wanted to blow the horn. So a quiet zone does not guarantee that it's going to be quiet. I know that in our past we've had a couple people, I know going back all the way through before I even got here, about this quiet zone being established. We have committed, at least on the preliminary side, to the citizens to try to establish that quiet zone. I still think it's important to do that. The timing is just going to be, we can have further discussion on that, but our plan would be to wait until it opens and then start that process. Obviously, if there's other direction from council, we will take that. I mean, but that's our recommendation.
Quick question. People have been living with the trains and the horns for years.
Mm-hmm.
So when Martin County says, well, we want to let them get used to the sound of the horns, I think their people are used to the sound of the horns. I mean, I don't see the logic in what they're saying as a reason to postpone quiet zones. And where we've had the fatalities along the Brightline tracks, my understanding is those aren't quiet zones where those are occurring.
Right. What I think is the kicker is the speed of the train versus 30-mile-an-hour train to possibly 120-mile-an-hour train. So I think that's their concern, is that even if you hear the train, knowing that you hear a train, you have a couple seconds to react versus hear the train and it hitting you right off the.
Well, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the problem is that the crossings in many of those areas where accidents have occurred aren't true quiet zone crossings. I mean, the true quiet zone crossings are supposed to be structured so that cars cannot get around.
Right.
Where most of these incidents have occurred, I believe, are where those crossing structures are not in place. So again, I guess I'm just questioning the logic here. I mean, I understand they've taken that position, but I don't see the strength of the argument as to why you would want to postpone it any longer than you need to. Everybody knows the trains are coming. Everybody knows the horns. We've seen Brightline trains go back and forth already on test runs. It just seems to me that for our residents, particularly those close to the tracks, it would be advantageous. But I also understand that Palm Beach and Martin both have to agree.
Right. For
their two crossings. We can't just do it with the Quest Drive alone, so.
Right. So, we're continuing to have conversations. I know Jupiter is planning. They're planning to move forward. I think unless I hear differently, we're gonna proceed. We're just gonna proceed a little bit more with a little bit more caution than we planned, instead of doing it now and day one, that thing being a quiet zone. To give it, it's gonna have a few months of blowing the horn and getting used to the speed. But obviously we'll take any direction from the council. If you guys want to proceed a different way, we can continue to have conversations, and you can either do that now, or we can do it, we can talk about it individually.
Well, I think the one thing we can talk to Martin County about is if they want to limit it for a year throughout the rest of the county, that'd be fine, but maybe we could talk to them about this one particular crossing at County Line Road to see if that one crossing, they would be agreeable to moving forward, with a quiet zone a little quicker.
Is Martin County not going to move forward with the physical constraints that are required?
No, I believe that all the physical restraints will be taken care of, just the application through
The railroad.
Right Line, because we have to actually apply through that. It's supposedly a couple-month process, so that's why, like, even if we let the train, open up and then we apply, that gives us a couple months, I think, from our citizen standpoint, knowing that we're applying and we're going through the process, but, we're gonna be a little cautious and make sure. So that's our approach. I mean, if anybody has anything, different, we'll take that direction.
I mean, I think the safety it's a serious concern. I don't think that's a bad idea to still do it, but maybe give it, start after it opens, so there's a couple months to get used to it. And Jeremy, maybe you remember, because I know I sent you the article, I don't know if it's state or federal funding, but it was a substantial amount of money that they're getting to do safety improvements, basically from Miami up to Palm Beach County for more safety measures for Brightline, because it's been such an issue. So it's something to take very seriously, that's for sure. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, like we've heard the trains, everyone's used to the trains, but it's a total different ballgame, I think, with the speed
No,
train.
I know, but I guess the point I was making is FEC is paying for the crossing upgrades in order to make sure they're structurally appropriate for quiet zones. The problem they've had up till now is they haven't had those structures in place, so people are cutting across tracks. I get that. But once they're in place and you're not able to, I mean, I understand we have to apply and it may take a couple of months, but you just said Martin County's talking about a moratorium for a year.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, well, maybe at least at county line, maybe we can get them to agree at least at that one location.
We can ask them, we can request them to move at our pace with that one as well.
Not a bad idea.
Because I know our residents along the tracks are really anxious
Yeah, I'm not gonna be happy.
for quiet zones.
Okay, we'll proceed that way. We'll reach out to Martin County. Update codes for corridor enhancements. Obviously, we're waiting for, we had the draft from Treasure Coast. We're preparing that, and so there's no funding currently provided. I don't know, depending on what we end up deciding, code-wise, it might just be, some legal expenses and obviously some planning expenses, but when we get those codes and if we need to do any kind of adjustment in the budget, we'll bring those to you so, it'll be several months before we have to make a budget adjustment, not to say that we ain't gonna do any kind of code changes before then, but we'll make those accordingly as it relates to the budget process. Low impact development manual, that's been approved by council. We'll end up transitioning this off through the next process. The tree enhancements, this has been in the works on the CIP for, this is the third year now. We're finally there. We do have $75,000 for, just advancing the trees and enhancement throughout the village. EAC is working on a streetscape plan to help us with some consideration, and that'll help move that project forward. But I know something that Mr. Bradford has said in that meeting is, trying to get us a recommendation quick, so that way come October 1, we can really try to hit the ground running, and get that lined up. Consider environmentally friendly policies. This was another initiative. I know that we're looking at R3 zoning now. Obviously with some of the, carbon reductions and some of the ordinances and prohibitions we put in place, and I believe the EAC will continue to look for things that we can consider in the future. There's currently no money budgeted for currently, and I don't foresee any. If we have to, if there's some additional costs for, including changing the code, obviously we'll bring those to you guys at a later date. The carbon footprint initiative, we've entered into the FLC Race to Zero, collecting data, develop an action plan. Lynn Britt is the person who's leading that. I know she puts in I think it was like 16 hours a month to do that, to do that, and I believe she's really putting in the work, collecting all the data is a lot. And once we get that, we'll start putting it into the iClid system, and so really trying to, I guess, compete with other municipalities, but the most important thing is trying to reduce that carbon footprint. We do have $500,000 worth of energy resource improvements at the water plant funded of the $5.5 million project that we have going there. Progress water system upgrades, you guys see that we have $11 million in the in capital improvements, or I think it's $12 million in capital improvements, but we're funding 10. You have that list. So we are doing, significant projects within this initiative. So I would say that we're checking the box on that one. And then progressing the stormwater system upgrades, the El Portal project, that's, been a topic of flooding for the village for quite a long time. And of course, there's a sidewalk that's gonna be planned on there as part of that. And then $104,000 worth of pipeline and swell restoration. So there's $404,000 budgeted for this initiative moving forward. And then a sustainable water supply, to me, this is more like maintenance of what we have. We have $450,000 in filter media replacement, $102,000 in recoating the ground storage tanks. And so with that, I think, the strategic plan really gives staff a good direction, especially when it comes to budget process. For us, when we looked at the budget process, anything outside of operations, we can really look at the initiatives you guys put together. And so with that, I can answer any questions on any initiatives, any budget items. Jeff's here. I think most of our staff's here. Any and all things. So that's our recommendation for budget, and that's what we brought to you guys tonight. I know in the previous workshop, the mayor has asked for some things to be considered. We helped put together this slideshow that she thought would be some considerations, something to have conversation about. Do you want to tackle that now?
Yeah. So
Okay.
nothing's new. All this is stuff that I've brought up in previous budget workshops, but I feel like we should just maybe one more time take a look and consider some other options with spending ARPA funds and whatnot, because I'm still in the boat where I'm on the fence with paying in full for the fire trucks right now, and with everything, all their utility fees, taxes, everything is going to go up for the residents. No one seems to be in favor to lower the millage rate or anything, so I think how can we provide some relief to the residents, or put more money in reserves now, because we got around $200,000 between the June and July workshop that wasn't accounted for. There's some projects on the list that maybe we could consider cutting to get a bigger chunk of change in the reserves. So yeah, I do want to just go through the slides and.
So just based on the conversations that she's brought in the past, I put together a slideshow. So this is our current use of ARPA funds. As you will see, we have $1.8 million for the fire trucks here. So this kind of leads into the next slide. So with the loan options we have for the fire truck that we've considered in the past, when we first started, we were in, option one. It's not really an option anymore, but that was the original. And just kind of going through the options here, you will see, our total interest paid over a period of time, and then what our total average payment will be. As we've kind of looked at the scenario that she wanted to put down, maybe put like $500,000 down on the fire truck, leaving $1.4 million in total principal. We still highlighted the total interest paid on something like that versus the annual payment. And so that would allow you, if you choose to take the $1.4 million or whatever version of that you want, and here are some options to use if you go that route. And so what?
Excuse me, Jeremy, just
Yep.
so you guys understand, I brought this up in the last workshop. We're very healthy, we can get a loan, and so to finance, maybe a good, to kind of meet in the middle would be put a good down payment on the fire trucks, finance some of it, and then we can use the funds to go towards the roads, the sidewalks, or even maybe cover a year of the expedited, accelerated water utility program that we've been talking about.
So with that explanation, we looked at what we're currently doing for our water replacement program. We're at 60%, and so those are what our annual payment's going to be using. I think we're going to end up using the revolving loan fund here. If we want to use some of these funds to either make a payment or at 100% of the water replacement pipes. At 100%, basically you're looking at a $1.1 million annual payment. And so you could use the $1.4 million for that. What you get into is that, you know, we would still have to increase rates with that, because you can't just borrow it. You need to have like a pledged revenue behind it. And I don't think that we would have, you know, the revenue behind it without starting to receive those funds. Then we could make the first payment with those loan payments. I think maybe a better option with that $1.4 million, if you guys chose to go this route, would be pay it down $1.4 million, leaving, you know, the total principal payment 14.3, and so then you see your annual payments moving forward. Now, let me just take a step back just to clarify. So the original $10 million, this is for 60% of the pipe. As you move forward, and it's 16 point, I think the original loan cost be 16.2. This is additional. So this is on top of the $10 million. The total delta to get from 60% to 100% of the pipes is $16 million. So this would be an additional payment on top of what we're already paying. And so as the mayor was talking about, maybe taking and making a down payment in paying off some of the principal early, you would lower those annual payments to get to 100%. Other options, we have a full list of stormwater projects that we could expedite over a period of time. This is, I think, a 20-year period. We have $6 million worth of projects. Obviously, you could choose to do that. We do have a handful of projects. It's really hard to read, so I apologize to the audience, but we do have a handful of projects that are planned this year. And so you can kind of see it as it progresses if you chose to do some stormwater projects instead of the fire trucks. Other options is you could accelerate the road program. Obviously, we have $773,000 planned. We have $100,000 for design and planning for future phases, and then we have you know, the future road phases at the $680,000. I think we've changed that in the capital plan to $710. So you could, you know, pay, you know, take some additional $1.4 million and expedite that program, accelerate it. Same thing with the sidewalk projects. You could accelerate that if you chose. You know, the only consideration I'd have for maybe the road projects and even sidewalks is just being careful with not doing too much construction all at the same time. You know, we do have to use these funds by 2025. And so, you know, we would be expediting some of those roads, and, you know, we're obviously going to have some major pipe replacement going down Tequesta Drive and Country Club Road. So we will have significant projects going already. So, you know, just keeping that in mind, and we'll have to be very strategic on the projects that we do.
Did you guys get confirmation if they have to be spent by then, or if it just needs to be committed by
It's committed.
2025?
Committed
So it
by.
doesn't, okay.
Yeah. So the other option, which, you know, I would throw a little hesitation into this, is, you know, the object of these funds aren't it's actually kind of prohibited to put it toward your fund balance. So if you were trying to build up your reserves, it's kind of frowned upon with the government. So I wouldn't necessarily go that route. But, you know, we do have to attack our fund balance, you know, at some point. So this is just that slide showing the difference between 2 months and 3 months. These are the projects that were funded in the general fund, out of the general fund this year. And so obviously you have consideration if you wanted to remove some of those and not do them. I mean, I think most of them are part of a strategic initiative, except for maybe the council chamber upgrades. So I think that was the last slide. I mean, any questions on the budget itself, or if I can help with any of those questions on those slides, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Jeremy. So again, and I've been saying this every budget workshop, we had extra revenue on hand that we didn't expect to get. We have the ARPA funds in hand, and with the volatility of the market, economy now, and potentially next year, right? We don't know. I just feel like it might be a little wiser to spread the cash. We have now, you know, committed to some of the projects we've always talked about accelerating, or like I said, you know, help kickstart the water, specifically just the water main replacement program that we've been talking about. And if, you know, we're healthy, we can maybe just put a larger down payment on fire trucks and still finance some. And to me, that seems reasonable. I just think we should we owe it to the residents to think a little outside the box and have these conversations and not just take what I feel is like the easiest path forward right now. Any comments?
I think all you're doing is moving money from one bucket to another. You're not really accomplishing anything, because if we spent the money on the fire trucks and you want to do some of these other things, you've got a loan payment you're now going to incur for the fire trucks. You could take that same money and do some, and accelerate some of these projects, or take a loan, if you want to take a loan, and use it for the same basis. So I think all you're doing is shuffle the deck, the cards on the deck, but you're not really,
We're not reducing our
you're
expenses.
not reducing your expenses. And I think the fire trucks, getting those paid, we've put the reserve program in place for the future so that we'll have cash on hand when those need to be replaced, which was a very, very good step. I think the vice mayor has suggested that. You know, I'm still very content with the idea of let's pay for the fire trucks. Let's not incur debt for that purpose. If we want to incur debt for some of these other elements, we can look at that. I'm not necessarily advocating that either at this point for the reason you just said. You've got a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. Most of our residents are homesteaded. So, you know, that 3% increase, it is a little bit of an increase, but if you look at the increases overall, you know, in the economy, that doesn't look too bad by comparison. And we've got a village that we're running that needs that 3% increase along with the other increase in revenues because of resales and all the other things that are happening to keep us, you know, on a solid financial footing. So, you know, again, as I've said before, all in favor of lowering taxes at the right time. But I do think at this point, the path we're on has been a good one. We've gone from, you know, a 2-month reserve, which everybody felt was adequate at the time. That was originally established several years ago. We're now at 2.5 months, so we're making headway there. So I think we're on, as you said, we're on a solid financial footing.
I think it's also important to point out, we haven't been here in the last 6-7 years. It's been a long time before. We've been below 2 months.
Yes, we were.
For 7 years.
We were, and now we're actually gaining on the 3-month mark. So, I don't know, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but again, to me, it's just like moving one item from one place to another. So I'm still very content with the budget the way it is and getting those trucks paid off. And like I said, if we wanted to incur some debt to do some of these other things faster, we could. But other than the water distribution, which you all know, I'm very much in favor of increasing the rates on, because I don't want to kick that can down the road. I think it's a benefit to our residents to move that along a little more quickly, and I don't think the $16 a month that they would incur in their rates is anything that most of our residents, I think, in fact, all of our residents probably can handle pretty well. So,
I don't want to use general fund expenses, or revenues and expenses, to pay for something out of the water fund. That's kind of one of the big areas too that I don't want to have to do. If we're pulling money
Well, it's
from.
ARPA funds, though.
What if, no, if we use the ARPA funds to pay for water, correct?
Yeah.
But if we're currently using it to pay for fire general, so if we're not gonna pull it and use it for fire, then we're gonna have to find general funds to pay for the fire truck going forward. And so to me, I'd rather not go that direction.
But we originally were gonna get a loan, and that was the original plan,
And then there was a better idea that came up.
to you.
well,
So, and listen, I know you guys are finance experts.
No, no.
I am not, but I don't agree with you that we're just moving money around. I think maybe being a little more strategic with cash we have in hand now.
well, I think the reason the loan appealed initially was because the rates were so low. And so obviously, if we could get a rate that was 2.5%, I agree, there was an argument to be made that with inflation and everything else, we're paying it back with cheaper dollars in the future. But now with rates going up, and again, with the economic uncertainty as we go forward, that to me changes the dynamic of you know, our thought process, and that's why I'm in favor of going ahead and getting it paid off.
I think, I mean, if your option to take another loan to speed something up, I don't think that's a good one, but if you want to talk about projects to cut, that would be the area that, okay, let's talk about what projects to cut. To me, that's the area that you can actually reduce your expenditures that can boost the general fund, or you can then use those for water projects, whatever.
Right, well, and that's listed there.
Okay. Which one do you want to get rid of?
It's up for discussion. I mean, that's why, I mean, the sidewalk, the 2 sidewalk projects and the beautification of the gateways, that was the 200,000, right?
207 or 217.
And like the beautification of the gateways, we really want to spend money there when Treasure Coast is working on that still, and like the streetscapes and stuff like that is obviously a big part of what they're looking at, and EAC is going to start looking at streetscapes. And the sidewalk projects, that was one, like I said, the ARPA funds, if we chose to do something with that instead, we could use those for the sidewalk projects. And the council chamber upgrades, we really need a new podium. I don't think we need that immediately. DeQuesta Fest, I know we've gone back and forth on that. It's a big expense, you know, is it gonna be a good place to have it at DeQuesta Park? That's just another one to think about cutting. I mean, I think they're all reasonable projects to consider cutting. And then the truck replacement, that was
That's the
the
reserve.
50% that was gonna go in the fund? Yeah. So
That's
that one, I mean, because that, to me too, that 50% could go towards the truck payment too, because it is for fire trucks, which the fund is gonna be for, right?
Well, that's the established
Instead of cutting
reserves
it.
when they need a replacement. Because again, the.
I know what it's for, but I'm
Yeah,
saying you
because
could
the-
use it
the-
now.
The rescue, one of the rescue vehicles is gonna need to be replaced probably, what, in the next, 5 years, chief?
Yeah, we had it laid out.
Okay. I mean, to me, the sidewalk projects are also safety issues. Improving those sidewalks, making them safe and usable for our residents, to me, that's a key project. Council chamber upgrade, I can live without that for a year. The beautification of the gateways, I mean, we're getting Treasure Coast planning coming in. To me, that's kind of the start of the process. If we spend it this year, great. If we defer it till next year, I'm okay with that too. DeQuesta Fest, I know there's strong community support for it, but I would say the two things, you could maybe defer the gateway, again, depending on where we are with Treasure Coast and EAC. Council chambers definitely could push that off a year. Sidewalk, I would keep. DeQuesta Fest, I guess it's just whatever people want to do with that one. I mean, I know the community really supports it.
The beautification for the gateways, is that a grant for that? Is there a matching grant on that, or there was at one point?
We can certainly seek a grant, I think.
I mean, we don't have a grant for that. I mean, there was, the grants that we have were for Remembrance Park and Constitution Park. We didn't have a grant for any beautification.
So Doug, can I ask you a question, if you don't mind? Because you usually do our gateways and our entrances with upgrading the seasonal plants, yes? How many entrance areas can you pull off with $37,667?
Now, mind you, this is planning and those types of things. So I
Okay.
know we've talked about,
So it's not actually funding for him to
right.
go and do
So
something?
this is, we've
Okay.
talked about, putting in a median on Palm Beach County. We'd have to get plans for
Okay.
that. We can't just, arbitrarily do it. So this is more than just putting the flowers out by the signs. This
Okay.
is,
So
some planning.
this could possibly even be structures, like planning for future structures,
I don't know what structure.
like
I don't-
medians.
Oh, yeah,
medians
if you're
and
gonna,
structure.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much that really covers for all that. Is that even enough?
It'll get us started. I mean, I don't think it's, an end all. I think it's something that we're gonna have to, it's been an initiative. This is the second year it's an initiative. This is the first year we funded it. We'll have to continue to, upgrade that. We've all, even Treasure Coast with that, from my take, we've really liked the approach of trying to improve Old Dixie, improve the Cypress, that little corridor there. I mean, I think there's plenty of areas to improve that's gonna, that we can put as much money as we want or not much. So, I mean, if we continue to go that route, we'll have to continue to, fund this project. So, to me, this is just a start. This is what the money that was available at the time. But I'll take any direction you guys want. It's been a part of an initiative, so I wanted to try to make sure that we were trying to target that initiative.
I would rather see us take the money from the council chambers and move it towards that beautification of gateways.
I was gonna say the same thing. And then the other thing in council chambers is, Brad in here?
Yes.
Okay, so I always try to think with our chambers, what's helping our residents. So a big thing was when the TVs behind us never used to work when I first came on, and that was a big deal for me because I felt like no one in the audience ever knew what council was talking about, and they couldn't see what we were looking at. So when you say TVs, is it to highlight those two in the back?
Right, yeah, This project, or the proposed project, enables us to move this podium. We actually
Yeah, I
need
know that
to
part.
create we need to put conduit in the floor, so we need to jack the concrete and put conduit here, put jacks under the podium so that we can remove all the cabling at will and move the podium wherever we need to move it. That TV is broken, needs to be replaced. If you recall, when we did the initial renovation of the council chambers, the council decided to remove the 2 rear screens out of the proposal. So since that time, this one's broken, and this one, you really can't see it that well.
Yeah.
And they should match anyway. So that replaces both of those screens. Also, we've been struggling because of the nature of the design of this room and this UFO shaped thing up here. It really messes with the sound. And our sound engineers have maxed out the capability of our mic mixer. It is right now as loud as it can get without feedback. So there's some features in this new proposed mic mixer that will allow them to get more gain out of the mics, allow the council to be heard better with higher quality sound through the YouTube stream, in addition to the council chambers.
Okay, is that just the sound for in here or on the streaming device as well?
Both.
Both, okay. Is Mr. Bradford back there? Okay, only because you were the farthest back in the room. Can you see these screens behind us?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so I mean, I would be,
You know,
is it blurry?
it can sometimes be difficult, but
Okay.
yes, I can read.
Okay, I only ask because it is important that our residents see what we are talking about and what we see for transparency. I'd be okay with just not worried about the 2 back screens. I would like sound to be efficient for our residents to hear and follow along. So I would almost support breaking up parts of the chamber and taking out the podium. I think we could live without that for a while. That's not a deal breaker for me. But for me, it is important to make sure that our residents can hear clearly and hold off on the excess screens, as long as we have these big ones, so the residents can see.
The cost of these 2 screens is very minimal. I mean, we're
I know.
talking sub $1,000.
But still, I'm
each.
fine without that for
Ju-
now, if we have to sit
just so
here
you
and
know.
go through these and really pick them apart.
Okay.
We don't have to. I mean, we can, include, they're all in the budget now,
I know,
so we can keep them in the budget. I guess.
but Mayor's asking for a conversation of what we
No, I
really
know.
could
So,
maybe remove,
so if
so.
we're taking something out, I mean, again, what's the purpose of taking out, and what are you gonna do with the money that you remove? Or where are you gonna, is it gonna be reallocated, or are you just looking to push it into a general fund account? I mean, what's the purpose?
I don't know.
I mean, I think.
I'm okay with the way it is.
I mean, all these things have value, so the question is the value sufficient that we wanna keep it? Or is it somewhat lacking, where we either wanna allocate it somewhere else or put it back into the reserves?
The intent was for reserves, to start, continue to build up the reserves. Since we got,
Yeah.
excess revenue and what we expected this year. Councilmember Johnson, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on redecorating chambers, and what we should do with it, or anything. I do agree with Frank. I feel like I'm content where we are with purchasing the fire truck. And, I like what you said. We're in a position where we could think outside the box, and here are some options. But I think if you took one of those options and replaced it with the fire truck, you could make an argument and say, hey, we're in a unique position here to purchase this fire truck in cash and not get a loan. So I do think that is thinking outside the box also. And I'm content with where we are right now with it.
Okay, any other council comments? All right, any public comment?
Thomas Bradford, 44 Chestnut Trail. I believe that the mixer, the audio mixer proposal is imperative. Just so you all know, you know where I was sitting. Tonight, Lori and Jeremy are the only 2 voices that came back there with absolute clarity. I think that's critical, that we
But part
can.
of that is that Molly and Frank tend to sit back and they don't have the mic up to their.
Yes, but I think that the new mixer concept will probably make the mics more able to pick up, because it can be uncomfortable to sit up like that, and it's more comfortable to lay back. But if you get that new mixer thing, and he's shaking his head, as what I've had in other places, was it picks it up a whole lot better. But you have to be careful about what you're saying to each other, because then everybody can. But anyway, mixer, I think, is imperative.
It's a good thing we're all nice to each other.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Any other public comment? No? Okay, well, I am not in agreement still with the budget, but it sounds like the rest of the council is, so I think there's basically no revisions to be made. One more thing I wanted to, on the, back on the strategic initiative on seek alternative transportation options. You know, I feel like, I know EAC looked into some like private mobility providers, and I know we kind of hit a roadblock, but and I know it's search for additional options. I really think I don't know if it's a combination of EAC and staff, but I think it's important to continue to look into that. I know I've heard a resident that can't even get an Uber to come sometimes. So you think, well, there's Uber and Lyft, no problem, but like they can't even get an Uber to come. And then I was not aware of this program. I think Jeremy was maybe going to look into it, but FDOT has a Safe Mobility for Life program, so maybe look into that, what that entails, get that information out to the public. So I think it's really important to continue looking for alternative transportation options. So just want to throw that out there. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I'd like to take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and start the next workshop.